KB Morris is a playwright and writer of male and short fiction as well as articles. She has had both articles and short stories published in various magazines and has taken her play to the Camden Fringe. She is currently writing a trilogy of, noir detective novellas. Yeah. And completing a collection of 10 dark short stories. Am I right that you're coming to us from England, KB?
Sorry?
Am I right you're coming to us from England?
Yeah, I'm in London.
Oh, so you're being nice enough to read for us at Dark O'Clock. Thank you so much. Take it away.
Rover added whiskey to his morning coffee and lit his first cigarette of the day. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Right.
You're good.
He was sitting outside a cafe on the corner of Holland Garter and Schweigart's Gate on a blustering autumn morning. He brushed ash from his shirt, then took out his notebook and held it down with a glass ashtray. He spent the previous day in Oslo Public Library researching the Black Circle, which was a group of black metal musicians who hung out at the record shop. According to his research, the Black Circle were venomous anti-Christian Satanists, responsible for burning down at least 8 churches in the early 90s. Misanthropes obsessed with the idea of evil and neo-Vagan nationalist mysticism. They openly admitted to torturing animals, child abuse, and murder. At the centre of this group was Øystein Areseth, or Euronymous, founder of the band Mayhem. Their lead singer, Per Dead Olhim, killed cats and hacked at himself on stage with a sacrificial knife. It was believed that he suffered from a rare condition called Cotard delusion or walking corpse delusion. The victim thinks their body is actually dead and they are putrefying. He, unsurprisingly, killed himself. Helvet stemmed from the Norse Hel's Viti, or Hell's Punishment, was a record shop founded by Euronymous in 1991. It was a base for his label, Deathlike Silence Productions, and acted as a hub for the Black Circle, who used to meet in the basement and, according to some accounts, performed satanic rituals. The shop was closed in 1993, a few months before Euronymous' brutal murder by a former friend. Rover looked up from his notes at the neat red and white buildings in front of him and the quiet pavements of modern Oslo. A child skateboarded past, and he wondered at what had driven middle-class kids from nice neighbourhoods towards such nihilism and darkness. He removed his sunglasses and rubbed his eyes. Rover swallowed back the last of his coffee, stuffed his notebook into his pocket and gestured for the bill. He stood and lit a cigarette that he puffed as he walked towards Helvet. Schweigart's Gate was a pleasant street with cherry blossom trees and 4-storied white buildings. Though it was windy, the sky was blue, the trees shielded him from the bright sun. He stood beside the bus stop and gazed across the road at the now infamous shop, which had lain empty since the murder trial. Set in a large residential building, it looked benign, differentiated from its neighbours only by the graffiti painted across the walls. Rover crossed the road, glanced around for onlookers, then easily unpicked the large padlock and slipped inside. He turned on his torch, lighting up the dusty black and white check floor. He went over to the counter at the back of the shop. There was nothing there, just empty shelves. He spied the entrance to the basement and went down the worn stone steps. He walked through a room with pipes across the ceiling and a fuse box. It was cold and the air was... It contained nothing but a pile of empty cardboard boxes. He looked through them, but there was nothing of note, just crumpled packing paper. He passed through into another room, even colder than the last, which had a stone bench attached to the wall, black metal, with an inverted cross for the T. It was roughly scrawled on the wall in black spray paint. In front of it was a large iron throne, and on either side of that were tall candlesticks in the shape of pentagrams. Rover felt along the walls for hidden doors or hollow spaces that may contain anything of interest, but there was nothing there. As he ran the torch over the large slabs, he picked out what could have been a pentagram and splashes of black wax. He was just crouching down to examine it more closely when a hand thudded on his shoulder, knocking him to one side. He was yanked to his feet by a very large man wearing sunglasses in the gloom, who must have walked like a cat because Rover hadn't heard a sound. "Come with me." Rover was gripped by the arm, held up the stairs and out of the shop. Feet barely touching the ground, he was escorted down the road to a black car with the engine running. As they drew close, the door swung open. "Get in," the man growled as he pushed him in. He followed close behind, and Rover found himself wedged in, unable to move. It was dark due to blackout windows, and the car smelled of leather and pine freshener. The man was chewing gum and making popping noises. Rover gritted his teeth. They turned right and passed the cafe he'd been in earlier. The radio was on low in the background and the luxury seats were heated. A conversation in Norwegian ensued, and as they left Oslo, Rover drifted off. When he awoke, they were driving through heavy snow on a narrow mountain road. To his right were pine trees weighed under a thick layer of snow. The car was quiet now, except for the radio in the background. Large flakes drifted past the window in the twilight, and he wondered how long he'd been asleep. It was nearly dark when they drove down a rough path in what looked like a field and pulled up outside a white wooden house. The man yawned and climbed out of the car. He held the door open. Get out. Stiff with a splitting headache, Rover clambered out of the car and stood ankle deep in snow. The men came up either side of him and was escorted up the steps to the front door. One of them pushed it open and ushered him inside. The men went into another room down the hall and closed the door. Mr. Latchington, please come in. A tall man with long dark hair and a beard stood in the doorway to his left. Rover followed him into a spacious room with an open fire. Take a seat. The man waved an arm. Drink? He poured out 2 large glasses from a stoppered bottle and handed one to Rover, who was sitting in a burgundy leather chair beside the fire. Rover took a sip. It tasted like homemade vodka. He threw back half and cradled the glass while the man settled into the seat opposite. It was silent for a few moments, except the crackle of the fire. The man was observing him under his long, dark lashes. He had an air of introspection, as though he was used to silence. His thin lips were set in what seemed to be a permanent half smile as he swallowed his glass. Rover jumped, sending his glass flying as he heard a familiar growl in his ear. The man laughed, delighted at his reaction. He waved his hand and the dog padded to his side and sat beside him. You've already met Scott. He stroked the dog's head. But you got away, it seems. He gave one of his half smiles, his eyes glittering in the firelight. Skull like sheep. Are you a sheep, Mr. Latchington? What? Rover righted his glass on the wooden floor. A sheep. You know what a sheep is, don't you? He leaned forward. Bah! He flashed jagged grey teeth that looked too small for his mouth. Of course I know what a sheep is, Mr. I have many names, but you can call me Knock. He made a double clicking sound with his tongue and laughed. He stood up. Let me get you another. Rover held out his glass and Knock took it with long, delicate fingers. He went over to the sideboard and refilled the glass while Skull kept guard over his charge. I'm wondering why I'm here, Rover said. The end.